Good morning, children. So, here I am back again with part 3 video of second chapter of economics, which is sectors of Indian economy. And today we will read about different kinds of unemployment which prevail in our country, and we will also learn that which sector provide largest employment to the people of our country. But before moving forward, let's have a quick recap of what we have read so far. So, in the beginning of the chapter, we have read about three sectors of our economy, which is primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector. And we also learn that when we produce a good by exploiting natural resources, it is an activity which come under primary sector. An example of primary sector are agriculture, fishing, dairy, animal husbandry, mining, forestry, etc. And we have read about secondary sector also, where we transform the product which we get from primary sector into a finished good, and that process known as manufacturing, or it comes under secondary sector. And we have read about tertiary sector also, which is a service sector. It support primary and secondary sector. All the services or different kinds of services come under tertiary sector, whether it is related to teaching, lawyer, washerman, barbers, cobblers, or police, administrative services, people those who work account work services related to information technology and communication. Each and every type of services come under tertiary sector. Then we also read about GDP, which is gross domestic product, and it is the monetary value of all the final goods and services that produce in a year. And and the sum of production of all three sectors gives us what is called the gross domestic product. Then in previous class, how tertiary sector in past few decades became so important in India, and there are several reasons responsible for it. First, our country is a developing country, and the government of our country started investing on basic services like transportation system, banks, insurance, hospitals, schools, police stations, telegraph services. As government of our country has to take responsibility for the provisions for these services, they started investing on these services. Automatically tertiary sector become so important. Second, the development of agriculture and industry leads to the development of services such as transport, trade, storage, etc. Third reason is, as the income level of the people of our country rises, so they demand more means of entertainment like uh, eating out, tourism, shopping, private hospitals, private schools, professional trainings, and these all are the part of tertiary sector. Apart from this, in past few decades, there are certain new services which arises and which based on information and communication technology, and it become important and essential for the development of the country, or for the development of particular department. So these are some of the reasons because of which in past few decades tertiary sector started gaining importance or became so important in India. Now let us see where are most of the people employed, which is our today's topic. So let's begin the topic. As we can see in this graph that in 1970 to 71, 74% people were engaged or working in primary sector, 11% in secondary sector and 15% in tertiary sector, and that percentage has changed in 2009 and 10. So in 2009 and 10 that percentage of the people those who work in primary sector has come down, and in uh, primary sector had accommodated 49% people, and in secondary sector share of employment has increased, which was 24%, and in tertiary sector it was 27%. So the share of employment has increased in secondary and in tertiary sector, and that share of employment has come down in primary sector, which is a good sign for economy, because children always remember that in developing and in underdeveloping nation most part of the population engaged in primary sector. On the other hand, if we'll take the example of the developed nation, then there we can see that most part of the population work in tertiary or in secondary sector, but still many people or 49% population of our country is engaged in primary sector. It means production has increased in secondary and in tertiary sector, but it is not according to the but the employment has not increased according to the production. So what are the reasons behind that we are going to see? First, not enough jobs were created in the secondary and tertiary sectors in last 40 years. So in last 40 years there were not enough jobs were created in secondary and tertiary sectors, so people were forced to work in primary sector as they do not have any other option. So production in secondary sector or in industries has increased by 9 times. On the other hand, employment only increased by 3 times in secondary or in industrial sector. In the same way, production has increased in service sector by 14 times. On the other hand, employment only has increased by 5 times. Then not enough jobs were created in the secondary and tertiary sector in last 40 years. More than half of the workers are working in the primary sector, mainly in agriculture, producing 1/4 of GDP. Production is very less from primary sector, but on the other hand, most part of the population or 40% people of our country work in primary sector. In the contrast, the secondary and tertiary sectors produce 4/5 of the produce and employ less than half of the people. In contrast, in secondary and tertiary sector, most part of the production of GDP is come, or the share of the GDP is higher from secondary and tertiary sector, but it very less people or less than half of the people employed in secondary and in tertiary sector. It means that there are more people in agriculture sector than is necessary. So it means extra people are working there. If we remove few people out of agriculture sector, production will not be affected, because more people are there than the required number. For example, the work which can be done by 40 people, now the same work is doing by 60 or 70 people. So the work which can be done by 40 people, if the same work is doing by 60 people, it means 20 people are extra there, and the 20 people are underemployed, that we can understand through an example. Suppose there is a small farmer named Lakshmi who owns a small land holdings, or the size of her land is 2 hectares, which was an unirrigated land, and all 5 members of a family working in that field, because they do not have any other options to go and work. So all 5 members of a family are forced to work on the same field. It seems that everybody is doing work, and but the actual fact is their labor efforts gets divided. Each one is doing some work, but no one is fully employed. This is the situation of underemployment, where people looks that they are working, but all of them are made to work less than their potential. If we remove 3 members of a family, and they will get some work in some other sectors, like in secondary or in tertiary sector, so in that case the income of the family will increase, but the production of the production from that field will not come down, or it will not get affected. So this is the situation, is called disguised unemployment. And in this type of unemployment, it seems that everybody is working, but in actual, some people are extra there, and if that people will be removed, the production will not be affected. And if that extra people will get some work in other sector, so their income will increase, as well as the income of other sector will also increase. So there are lakhs of farmers in our country like Lakshmi. It means many people are extra in agriculture sector or in primary sector. If these people will remove from primary sector, and if they will provide it by some work elsewhere, so agricultural production will not suffer. The income of the other people who take up other work would increase the total family income, as well as the national income. This underemployment cannot only be seen in primary sector, but it can also be seen in other sector like service sector, where thousands of people are casual workers, and those work on daily wages, means they are employed as painters, plumbers, casual workers, and they are doing some odd jobs. Their work are not regular, and their income are not regular, so they are also the part of under unemployment or disguised unemployments. They do not have the work throughout the year. Though underemployment mostly seen in primary sector, but in other sector also we have the example of underemployment. Now the question is, in what ways can one increase employment for people, so that people will have regular work and regular income, which will improve their standard of living, and which will improve the status of development of our country. So that will be the topic of our next class, how to create more employment, and that topic we will start in next class. So that's all for today's class. So children, I hope you all have done the work which was given to you in previous classes. Be regular with your work and spend quality time with your family members. Stay home, stay safe. Thank you, class.